Hello, 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 and welcome. My name is Sabrina Victoria. This is Her Talk Show, and I am here with Scotti Moser. We're going to be talking all about how to reclaim your peace, power, and passion after narcissistic parenting. I know so many of my ladies listening can 100% feel all the feels with this one. So I recommend you to put your feet up, make yourself some tea, and sit down with us. We're going to be talking about some triumphs, some challenges faced by women worldwide. And Scotti here is going to be offering some insight and some inspiration to fuel not only your personal growth, but also your professional growth. Let's jump in.
Get ready, because today's guest is about to change the way you view your world. This is Her Talk Show, hosted by Sabrina Victoria.
If you're listening live, welcome. And if you're listening on the replay, make sure you hashtag replay wherever you're at so we can send you some love in the comments. We are here every day delving deep into the realms of health, wealth, and leadership with some of the most brilliant women globally. We've interviewed over 600 women. And today, like I said, we're adding another one to the list. We have Scotti Moser, who is a transformational coach specializing in helping women break free from the toxic effects of narcissistic parenting. With her compassionate guidance, she empowers women to rediscover their authentic selves, regain their confidence, and reclaim their passion for life. Scotti has created proven strategies for emotional healing, boundary setting, and building resilience, providing her clients with the tools to live with peace, power, and purpose. So welcome, lady.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Yes, thank you. You know, this is such an important topic. I think more so because it's invisible. You know, I can't even tell you, and I'm sure you have plenty of stories to tell of individuals that are just living with this torture, whether it's like during, right, living in it now, or living with the after effects of it. And they have absolutely no idea why they are struggling so much.
Yes, I totally agree. And narcissistic abuse is so nuanced. It's subtle. It's more subtle than we understand. And so also an important aspect of it is the gaslighting. We're being told by the narcissist in our life that it's our fault and our problem, and that's our go-to. That's our belief system. One of our fundamental core beliefs is this must be my problem. How can I fix me?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I know I've had conversations even with individuals that are just now coming to terms, and they're sitting down and they're having conversations. And you and I were just talking about being gaslit and just the complete denial of basic things that were happening while these individuals were growing up, and getting absolutely no validation, no apology, just a small apology towards, you know what? Yes, right? Just completely bypassing that this stuff had happened. I'd love for you to share a little bit. I mean, I'm assuming that you have a story to tell regarding an atmosphere like this. Usually, when we have a passionate thought process around something so personal, it's because we ourselves have endured some of this in our past. I'd love for you to speak a little bit on that.
Sure. I grew up with a narcissistic father and his co-narcissist enabler wife, my mother, and it was in a small town, and that was kind of the norm among a lot of my friends, just their parenting style. So I don't have a lot to compare it to. I coped by achieving, by being perfect and trying harder, I call it. And this served me nominally well. I went to college, I went to law school, I had this professional career. I was really, really good at certain things, and I learned to survive by capitalizing on those things. The rubber started to hit the proverbial road when I was in my early 30s. And I was still, because it wasn't new, but I always thought I would grow out of it, that it was a kid thing. I was still racked with crippling anxiety. I still didn't have much confidence. I ruminated, I worried. My interior quality of life was just really, really low. And I decided I needed to figure out what was going on with me. And I wanted to eat, pray, and love my way out of it. I wanted to go to Italy. I wanted this big thing. I wanted the movie. But no, I was pregnant and I had a 2-year-old. And at that time, I was the primary breadwinner. So I couldn't escape, which was really what I was looking for, an escape, I think, more than anything. And I took my journey on the inside and I used my legal research skills and I researched and I healed and I made sense of it. And my coaching business, I started with a lot of law of attraction things, and I'm still a big law of attraction fangirl, but I found that I had to go a lot deeper than a lot of law of attraction coaches go. And I went through several iterations of my coaching practice, and things really fell together when I discovered the narcissistic piece. It gave me the framework and the root of the root of the root of what was causing my clients and my problems or issues.
Wow. So some of what you were just talking about reminds me of like people pleasing when you were like, it just taught me basically just to like be the best in all of the things. When people pleasing like in my opinion could be crippling, right? Because we're always trying to make everyone happy and it's impossible to make everyone happy. And when you are trying to make everyone happy, a lot of times you're not happy. I'd love for you to talk a little bit on your journey regarding that, regarding people pleasing, what that looked like to kind of go through that, realize that, and then come out on the other end with wherever you're at right now.
Ooh, people pleasing is one of the hardest pieces. There's a lot of hard pieces in recovering from narcissistic abuse, but people pleasing is a big one. And it's really ingrained because that's our coping mechanism, right? That's how we survived our childhood is we made these people happy. We didn't get a self. We didn't get to have our own thoughts and opinions. At least I didn't. And that was squashed. You know, our primary function is to make sure that the narcissistic parent feels superior. So people pleasing starts deep and it runs deep. And it showed up in all aspects of my life. I would attract people into my life that would create chaos and really take advantage of me. And I had no language, I had no thought process to put a stop to it. And so I just coped around it as best I could. You know, when I started my own law firm, I had this whole string of employees that didn't do their jobs, that were incompetent. And I've seen this over and over in my clients' lives. They have the accountant. I had the accountant. That's actually me. Or the CFO or the secretary, any of the people that are creating chaos, and they don't want to hurt their feelings, and they really have no framework or structure for setting that boundary. And really deep down, it's what we feel we deserve. We deserve to be treated this way. Our narcissistic parent failed at being a capable parent. And so when other people come into our lives and fail at being competent at their job, that feels really familiar to us. And so we don't put a stop to it. We don't have those tools.
Yeah, absolutely. And that kind of leads us to boundaries. You know, in the intro that I was reading here, it said, proven strategies for emotional healing and boundary setting. I'd love for you to talk a little bit about boundary setting, what that actually means, and then how to actually do that.
Boundary setting, absolutely. Boundary setting is basically when you put up the energetic, mental, and emotional fence around yourself. This is me. You don't get to come into this space and create chaos and make my life worse. And for every person, it's different. And as we get healthier, our fence gets wider and wider. But it's really hard to set those boundaries because of all of the beliefs that we have built around that. As a kid, and this is just the for real truth, we didn't get to set boundaries. It was objectively not safe for us. So those fears, that inability to set boundaries is keeping us safe. Of course, as we grow into adulthood, it's not so much anymore, and it's actually letting the crazy makers in. But there's a really young part of us that believes that those boundaries are still keeping us safe. And so it feels life or death. Our nervous system gets triggered, and we go into the sweaty palms and the heart beating and the fuzzy thinking. It feels really, really unsafe to draw that line into the sand, to have that conversation with that person. And I think giving ourselves that information is important, understanding what happened to us. So yeah, you're not doing this thing called boundary setting, but it's okay because it's actually really rational and logical. Like, there's nothing fundamentally flawed with you. It makes sense in that perverse world you grew up in. And so that helps with your confidence, that helps with your energy. And then after you get that foundation built, that you're not crazy for even wanting a boundary, then I start going through with my clients one by one. Okay, what's the belief? What's the first time you had this belief? And then we notice and acknowledge the emotional life or death nervous system reaction that goes with that root thought. And then I use EFT, emotional freedom technique, and tapping to release not just the thought that's causing the problem, but all of that nervous system life or death emotion or burden that is crippling us, literally physically crippling us, shutting us down. And as we go through those beliefs one by one, eventually boundary setting becomes easier.
It's great. EFT tapping, I love that you're talking about this. Is this one of the steps that you recommend as far as helping people kind of rebuild their self-worth?
Yes, it's 1 and 2. 1 and 2 go back and forth. So step number 1, releasing the emotional burden and the mental burden that you're carrying. And when I say that, I mean physically in your body carrying, in the form of tightness in your chest, nervous in your stomach, sweaty in your palms, tight in your jaw. I mean, all of those physical sensations that you're carrying, which in my opinion, the root is emotional. So that's step 1. And then step 2 is making sense of what happened to you. So those 2 steps go back and forth, around and around. Make sense, release the burden.
When you say to actually release the burden, and you're actually talking about physical things in our body, what is some of the movement? What is some of the things? Is this just thoughts, thinking that will release our jaw and our tightness, or is there some sort of
No, it's feeling it fully and accepting it while you tap through the points. And I'm also doing some energy work on my end and helping move that energy, some forgiveness work on my end, and the feeling, the total acceptance is the emotional release and the physical release.
yeah. When you are working with these clients, what is your recommendation normally around family? Like, we're talking specifically right here on narcissistic parenting. What is your, I guess, recommendation that you give to these individuals who are dealing with parents right now, that are highly narcissistic? Is there boundaries? Is there gray rocking? Is there no contact? What is the discussion behind closed doors with this?
I recommend that they work with me for 3 to 6 months and don't worry about all that outside garbage, and just release the burden, because understand what's happening, start understanding the process. And then after you have that foundational healing under you and you start to understand what's happening, then I guide them through making that decision. And every person is different in their process. It is my opinion that optimally distance from the narcissist is a foundational pillar of healing, and preferably emotional and physical and mental distance is the best. I understand that some people aren't in a position to get physical distance, and then we work with the emotional and mental aspect of it. But in my opinion, ideally, you need all 3. You need distance from the narcissist. Nobody deserves that. Nobody's got the crappy job of tolerating that.
Yeah, I'm loving this idea of not worrying about any boundaries for the first 3 to 6 months. I can really just imagine these individuals just working on their personal power, their confidence, and their voice. Because I didn't really think about that. Like, when you're seeking out advice, seeking out counseling from, or coaching from someone like you, they're in a state of, like, fear, of, like, weakness, of, like, small. They don't know what to do, so then to tell them, "Go set boundaries," that could be so full of anxiety. So I love this 3 to 6 months just working on themselves first, then analyzing what those relationships look like. Powerful.
Yeah, and often it's best not to start with the big boundary. It's often much easier to set boundaries at work. Work is generally a little healthier than if that narcissist is really close to you in a parental or marital relationship. And set small boundaries at work and in your professional life first. You practice, your muscles get stronger, and then you move, and your self worth grows. And a part of you starts realizing, hey, I have a point and I don't deserve to be treated this way. So you climb the boundary ladder.
Yeah. As far as the, really starting to step into your authentic self over a month's time, and then, um, the family dynamics. What do you really start to see happen with your clients regarding how they're holding themselves, how they're interacting with individuals? What is kind of the result that you're seeing these individuals have over the course of 3 to 6 months?
The result is they make more money. That's one of the first tangible things. That's one of the easier things to let go of is our income blocks. There's 5 types of money energetically, and income is one of them. And that's one of the first things that happen, and it's almost surface level, although it's not, because it really improves our lives dramatically. The first thing usually is they make more money and set boundaries and hold their value at work first before they move into any marital or parental boundary setting.
That's interesting. What about as far as their personality, their confidence?
Oh, the confidence. Yes. The confidence, especially at work, steps up. And it's a bit tricky. And this tripped me up for a while in my individual coaching because more confidence serves us directly at work. Usually, it usually pretty immediately reflects in promotions, raises, things like that. That energy is met and we get a fairly quick response. But in our personal, our really tight, close relationships, being more confident and boundary setting is going to cause a lot of conflict with the narcissist in your life. So, those relationships, when you stop people pleasing, nobody's going to like that. Nobody likes that. And so you have to be able to handle the escalating levels of conflict. And that's why I ultimately advise, limiting conflict, gray rocking, using your tools when you have to be around that person in your life.
It's great. Earlier in the podcast, you mentioned the law of attraction. How do you use the law of attraction in this scenario?
The law of attraction to me is really that law that controls the universe. It's just there's so many different aspects of it. The law of attraction is what you hold inside. But when I say what you hold inside, I mean your thoughts and your emotions and any past events, any of those. Some people call them traumas. I call them traumas or burdens that we're still psychologically holding in our nervous system. So that's our energy, our thoughts, our emotions, and those past events that we're still carrying with us. And so the law of attraction is bringing income, money, people, opportunities, situations, and events to match what we're holding inside. And so if we have a bunch of crappy beliefs, like I'm not worthy of deserving money, it's going to be, or I'm not worthy. Money often equates with love in a narcissistic abuse survivor's unconscious system. Money is love, and I don't get it. And so what I help them do is release, first of all, find that foundational belief. And then we get the nervous system response. If we're carrying a lot of energy around it, we call it getting triggered. It's going to trigger that response. And so we're going to feel life or death in our nervous system. I like it to go up to an 8, to a 9, to a 10. And then I use tapping to help people release that burden and then that belief. So that the law of attraction, when you change on the inside, everything's going to change on the outside. And the law of attraction will start bringing you different opportunities, people, places, situations to match that new emotion that you're carrying.
Beautiful. When you say money is love, what does that mean?
I mean that we unconsciously equate money with love. And for a lot of us, it's something that we work and we work and we work and we never get enough of. In my clients and in myself, it feels like money, AKA love, is withheld. Feels like we're deprived. It feels like we're being breadcrumbed. For people that aren't in on the narcissistic lingo, breadcrumbing is when you give just enough to keep that person in the relationship, because if you give them nothing ever, then they will eventually leave. But if you give them like some pat on the backs and some attaboys once in a while, or, go out of your way, then that keeps them around. And then you can tell them that they're crazy for thinking that they're mean or abusive. That's called breadcrumbing. And we experience breadcrumbing in our money. So it feels like dribs and drabs of money is coming in, and it feels like it's never enough and our needs are never getting met. And what we're unconsciously doing is recreating those childhood events and emotions that we've been stuck in. It's kind of like a flashback. And when you get to the root of people's money issues, often it goes all the way back to childhood when they were deprived of love.
Wow, this is so interesting. I've never heard of this yet. Totally get what you're saying.
Awesome. Thank you. Yes, it's my passion. And the other types of money, in case your listeners are interested, are savings. And abuse survivors struggle with holding on to their wealth and saving money because they've never been taught how to create that safe place inside of themselves. You as a kid, you unconsciously recreate that narcissistic parent to keep you safe, yelling at you in your head the whole time. And so we never learn how to soothe ourselves and how to create that safe space energetically with our emotions and our thoughts that shows up in our savings account. We can't save money. We can't accumulate wealth because that energy, law of attraction kicks in and the energy is not there to match it. Debt is primarily equated usually with shame, and we got a lot of that, so that feels completely familiar to us. And so we have a tendency to create debt in our lives, and then a lot of times we work really hard and pay it off, and that shame is still there. So it's this cycle. We're in the debt cycle. And then income, which we kind of touched on. Income goals. A lot of time goals feel unreachable and futile to people who are abuse survivors, because reaching for something and increasing your income, you need to first provide the inner validation to really go for that. We don't have any inner validation or practice in that area. Income goals are tricky for us. And then toxic money, which all of our money kind of becomes toxic, but toxic money shows up in a lot of divorces, child support, inheritance battles, when literally every aspect is enmeshed in that emotional emotional, energetic entanglement that we have with this person.
Wow. As far as I know that you speak often also on generational generational trauma that has happened. So, not necessarily immediately our parents, but from generations behind us. Can you speak on that briefly as far as how that's impacting us?
Right. So we carry that unconsciously. A lot of our parents had it really rough, and our grandparents, and even further back, they came over on a boat or however they got here. Not fun. A lot of them were minorities and disdained and looked down upon, arriving in the US, and they had to work really, really hard. And the whole world was telling them that they had very little value. And then they lived through the Depression generationally, not necessarily the same people, although it could have been. They lived through the Depression and World War II. And all of that energetic weight, in my opinion, is passed on. So we carry that, and it can show up at different times in our lives. A lot of people through their 20s, they kind of shrug it off and it doesn't affect them. And I see it setting in more in people's 30s and 40s, when for whatever reason that generational belief system really kicks in and starts weighing us down.
Really? So we kind of just lackadaisically ignore all that. Do you think maybe it's because we start seeing it because now we need money in our 30s and 40s because we've got like marriage, family, kids,
Definitely. And I think we have so much power in our 20s, and we're telling ourselves that we can power. We have so much energy, and we have
energy?
so much more optimism. This is going to be different. I'm going to outgrow this. And also, there's a belief system of once I get X, Y, and Z, I'm going to feel better. And so that can keep us going for a decade or more. Then we get X, Y, and Z. We get the promotion, the spouse, the kids, and the feeling is still there.
Got it. Yes, absolutely. I had a question that I was going to ask on the back end of that. I don't remember. I got pregnant when I was 20. So I didn't really have that to see because I was a single mom and just broke. I was just broke. What was I going to say? Oh, okay. So you're talking about the darkness of our I'm just kind of curious. This question is more out of curiosity. When we're talking about our generational trauma or generational things that have happened, and there's a lot of darkness with our grandparents or our great grandparents and the life that they led. Is there a way to reframe it? Can we reframe like they came over on a boat and barely survived into I'm a survivor because? Or is
Yes,
it always negative?
that no, no. There's just one, I wouldn't say reframing it is the best way to approach it, because mental gymnastics generally don't get that deep full body help that I'm talking about. So I would say more releasing it. And when I work with people, sometimes they come up with burdens that's not even theirs. So you can, when you're getting to that root thought, that root emotion, you can get there and you can release it. You don't, and then the reframe comes naturally. Then you have that energetic fire hose, which has been blocked off with all of that heaviness. And then you're naturally reframing it. You don't have to struggle so much cerebrally.
That is so interesting. Yeah, I was having a conversation with somebody about cotton picking. It's a kind of in a group. I didn't really say too much. It wasn't really my place. Um, but my dad picked cotton. I'm from a Hispanic background, Mexico. And my dad picked cotton with his brothers and his dad. And I always, in my head, thought this is why I'm such a hard worker. This is why I have such a hustle mentality. And I've never really thought of it as being like bad. Like we came from nothing. We came from broke. Um, Although I do have that story in my actual story, but I line that up with my start in my 20s, started off horribly. So this is all very interesting to me as far as, I've always viewed it as why I am so strong and such a hustler, but I'm kind of wondering if maybe there's a little bit unconsciously down there of this lack that you're talking about that I've never really even thought about. And maybe that's where a lot of my struggle came from as far as my story, and then also ending up with an abusive partner. This is all very interesting.
Do you choose to work that hard or do you have to work that hard?
Same. It's the same.
Yeah.
I've thought of that also. Like people have asked me, like, would you, because of the hustle, right? People try to understand it. They just don't get, like, you get 5 hours of sleep. Like, what is wrong with you? Why are you doing that? What is the point of that? If you had $1 million, there's no way. And I don't have $1 million, so I don't know. But in that story, if you had $1 million, would you still be working this hard? My answer is like a resounding yes. But I don't have $1 million actually.
Mhm.
So still don't know, but yes, lack. I always start my day with 0, like for real 0. And also I love it, I think.
That's a stressful, maybe you'll disagree with this, but starting at the day at 0, is that kind of stressful?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But I also believe that in order to get to where I want to get, it is stressful. Like I'm trying to build an empire. So I have, like, to get to where I want to get, the vision that I have is so enormous that, dude, it takes a lot of time and work and effort and strength mentally and emotionally to get there. I believe that the story that I went through, the tenacity to get to where I am today was given to me because of this vision that I now have. So it was almost like it had to happen in order for this thing that I'm working on to get to where it wants to get to, or it has to get to. So yeah, there's a lot to meditate on with all of this. This is very interesting. I really appreciate you bringing some of this to light for me. What are you going to say?
You're welcome. If I were working with you, I would say we get to keep the good stuff. There's a lot of good stuff in what you just told me, but some red flags that I would be making a note of and focusing on in coaching. Keeping busy is often part of a flight response. We learn very young that if we're busy, it helps us because the parent isn't attacking us. We get lots of the outside benefits of people paying us more, more hours, more expertise, all of those things. And our system keeps us in that coping response, keeping busy. And if we're busy enough, then we're not completely present. And so I'm not saying that's you, but I'm saying that is something that I would be watching out for and seeing if we needed to turn down that busyness as part of a coping mechanism that's maybe no longer serving you.
Yeah, 100%. You know what's so interesting about this? I was having this conversation with a fellow woman, also came from a narcissistic background, and she was talking about how she's now good and she's remarried and she's living her best life,
Mhm.
And she's like, I have no motivation. And she's like, I've been sitting and pondering on this for like 3 or 4 months. Her and I were just like talking just intimately. She's like, I figured it out. And I was like, what? Tell me. This is so interesting to me. And she's like, because I don't have like a teacher, or I don't know what she used, but like a person hovering over me all day, every day, expecting me to show up like so freaking fast, so fast, all day, every day for years and years and years and years. Also a single mom, same as me. Ended up in a bad relationship, same as me. And she's like, now that I'm in a safe space, I'm almost like I don't have the fire underneath me. So like I don't have like an ignition. I don't know how to turn on because my like reason for working so hard was to not get in trouble. I was like, how freaking crazy is that? And I did to a point relate to her previously. Like it actually helped me a little bit. And to your point, your question of like starting at zero, that sounds awful. That starting at zero thought process came right around the time of that conversation because I was like, dude, I'm now in a very healthy spot mentally, emotionally. I've got boundaries. I'm like so good in my healing journey at this moment, which lasts forever. Um, but I felt that like I felt what she was saying so internally. I was like, dude, I have slowed down. I have like taken a step back and just kind of seeing her frustration with her work. I was like, I got to find another light. I have to find another way to like turn myself on, I guess, to make sure that I don't ever hit that because I understood it. Um, that's all I
That was me. I empathize with your friend a lot. I just went blah, splat, flat, squashed. And a big aspect of that, in my opinion, is you've never gotten to do something for you because you wanted to. And so that is unfamiliar and it's unsafe on so
Mm,
many different levels. What am I going to do that I really enjoy? That wasn't an okay question for me to be asking when I was 9, 10, 11, 12. It was, what do I have to do to make you happy? Or get, and then as you grow, it's get the money, pay the bills, all of that stuff. So when that goes away, it feels so fundamentally unsafe to turn into to do something that you want. You kind of disassociate, shut down. Your psyche is, I'm having none of this. We are not
yeah,
going there today. We're going to take a nap.
yeah. It's just so interesting how all this works, and how it shows up in so many different ways, negatively or positively, over the years,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah, there's always a lot of different layers. There's what the surface level, what you think is going on, and then what's really driving this, which has always been what interests me, what's really driving. And at first, people thought I was crazy until I found my people who didn't think that. But a lot of people think you're crazy if, they say, I don't want to get out of bed and go to work anymore because I don't have to. And I'm going, let's talk about what happened to you when you were a kid. What? That has nothing to do with it. When actually it usually does. We're
Um,
carrying so much crap from back then and even from prior generations.
wow. So good, so good. Um, as we kind of start to wrap up here, we have a ton of people watching live, by the way. Thanks so much for being here and hanging out with us. I'd love for you to talk a little bit about who exactly you help, who should be reaching out to you.
I help professional women make more money, be more confident, and feel better. And I do that by helping them recover from narcissistic abuse.
Wow.
And my website is right there, scottimoser.com. You can go there and sign up, and I will email you, or you can preemptively email me. And I'm also on Instagram and LinkedIn. Scotti Moser Coaching on Instagram and Scotti Moser in LinkedIn. And if you feel like you're hitting all of these invisible barriers and there's really you can't figure it out, and you feel like you're on the treadmill. You keep repeating the same situations and drawing the same type of person into your life over and over, or you've hit that proverbial glass ceiling, then you should contact me, because I might have some insights into what that glass ceiling is built of and the roots of your problem.
Great. And then people, for those that want to follow you, where can they link up with you on social media? Where do you hang out the most?
Instagram, Scotti Moser Coaching.
Beautiful. Well, this has been enlightening. I so appreciate you hanging out with us and sharing just so much goodness with us. Any closing thoughts as we start to wrap up?
Awareness is everything. As we become aware of what's driving our actions, then we're empowered to change them. So understanding and awareness of what you went through is anybody's first step. And there's a lot of that out there. And so if any of this resonates with you, I just really encourage you to type a search narcissistic abuse recovery into YouTube, any of the places, and start educating yourself. And once you have that awareness, you're going to feel so much better, so much more empowered. And then you can start taking actionable steps to help yourself for once. And I know a lot of people that feels scary, but it's part of our soul's purpose to do the scary things and start feeding and nurturing and taking care of and loving ourselves.
Yeah. I remember when I first dove into this, what you're talking about here, I felt very unloyal. That was like a big thing. I felt like I was being deceitful. I felt like I was being secretive. I felt like I was being disloyal. And that was really heavy on my mental, because those were things that I really prided myself on. Was like, I'm such a good person and I'm always there for everybody, and I would never want to hurt anybody or leave anyone or be dishonest. But all of my research had to be super secretive, super hidden. I couldn't tell anybody or talk to anybody, including my spouse, about it. And I had a really hard time with that. So for those of you that are, like Scotti is saying, kind of diving into this and really seeing that there might be something here, those are some feelings that might pop up, whether it's with your partner or your parents, and that's normal. And you have to educate yourself.
Yes, and I would just further add that disloyal, it's not so much the disloyalty, but it's showing up in your money. You holding yourself back is showing up in your income. If it feels disloyal to put yourself first, then you're actually being loyal to the struggle paradigm. And a lot of times that will show up in your money as well as other places. So just another little push to push you into loyalty to the self. Let's start practicing some of that.
I love that. It's good stuff. To those of you listening live, thank you so much for being here. If you resonated with Scotti and all the goodness that she shared, she pretty much hangs out the most on Instagram. Make sure you check her out. Her website, scottimoser.com, is in a clickable link in the description below, wherever you are watching us at. It looks like you might have a free download here, Overwhelmed to the Fire. Overwhelmed to on fire.
Yes. So yeah, if you want that free download, I'd be happy to provide it. It's a first step and a lot of insights into starting the process of recovery.
Overwhelmed to on fire, 10 easy steps to creating a life that represents who you truly are. It's beautiful. Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Scotti, for being here, hanging out with us, giving us some inspiration. Another incredible episode. Thank you for your wisdom.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Of course. To our dedicated listeners who made it all the way to the end, thank you. Make sure you follow, like, and share this video to continue the message going forward. Once again, my name is Sabrina Victoria. I invite you to join this amazing community, Her Nation Global, where we continue to uplift women every step of the way, not only personally, but also professionally. Until next time, do something